We can't talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood without mentioning the finale.
Around midnight, a completely drunk Rick Dalton started making a blender of frozen margaritas.
There are many spoilers ahead, so continue watching only if you've seen the film.
Why not?
The culmination begins with the appearance of the foursome from the Manson family. In Quentin's interpretation, Mia Hawke's character gets cold feet and runs away, although in real life Linda Kasabian stays in the car. Later, her testimony helped to convict Tex Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Susan Atkins in court.
All were found guilty of murder in the first degree.
Tex introduces himself to Cliff using the phrase which he said when he entered Tate's home.
I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business.
What unfolds next is possibly the goriest scene in all of Tarantino's filmography. For a director having a track record like he does, that's saying something.
Jesus Christ!
Sadie, by the way, the character for which Tarantino reserved with the worst death, was the most bloodthirsty member of the sect. The main star of this butchery is a pit bull named Sayuri, who played Booth's faithful companion. The dog eclipsed the acting of the whole ensemble. And a year later, Quentin received a palm leaf at Cannes on her behalf, an award reserved for the best four-legged actors.
But it wasn't until I was editing the movie that I realized, hey, she's kind of a good actress.
You understand? All right.
When the characters finish with the Manson followers, music from the western The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean comes on. This is worth noting because at the beginning of that film appear the words, "Maybe this isn't the way it was. It's the way it should have been."
Hi, Rick.
Cheryl, hi.
Oh, it's so nice to finally meet you.
Once again, Tarantino used the finale to rewrite history. Last time he eradicated the Nazis, and this time he not only saved the lives of Sharon and her friends, but also the era of peace and love. The violence of the Manson family put an end to the trends of long hair and going barefoot. After the lawsuit against the murderers, no one wanted to look like a hippie.
Today, the magic is gone. Aimless and disorganized, the hippies have fallen prey to their own free spirit. Free drugs and too much free publicity have gradually corrupted them.
Fucking hippie motherfuckers.
So instead of the usual story based on real events, where the viewer is filled with grief at the looming ending, Quentin got even with the villains. He got his revenge on the violent killings and terror which fettered Hollywood and brought an end to a happy, carefree childhood.
Is everybody okay?
Well, the fucking hippies aren't. That's for goddamn sure. Yeah.
Tarantino finished filming his magnum opus on the 1st of November 2018. But before he could start editing, he got married to Daniela Peake. They had a simple ceremony in Beverly Hills, and later a banquet for their closest friends. By the way, Daniela has a cameo in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, playing Rick's co-star while he's working in Italy.
In Rome, Rick loved the paparazzi and the fuss they made over him and his Nebraska Jim co-star Daphne Ben Kobo.
Right there, paparazzo.
The first version of the film, edited by Fred Raskin, was over 4 hours long. But Quentin wanted a dynamic film, so over the next year he cut the time in two. Hundreds of minutes were left on the editing table, and several characters were removed altogether. That's why the premiere did not include the appearances of Danny Strong, the aforementioned James Marston, or Tim Roth on screen. Die-hard fans harbor the hope that one day they will see all the deleted scenes, since Quentin promised to release the full version of the picture a year or two after the initial release in movie theaters.
Holy shit.
So far, it's unclear whether it will be in the form of a miniseries or the longest full-feature film in 50 years.
I hope so.
The director also dreamed of turning the screenplay into a novel, but I don't think it will get published anytime soon.
Yeah, sorry about that.
The premiere of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood occurred on the 22nd of July, 2019. The showing ended with Deborah Tate in tears, thanking Margot Robbie, who had brought Sharon back to life 50 years after her tragic death. Over the next 3 months, the picture made over $300 million at the box office, the second most profitable in Quentin's career after Django Unchained.
It was a pleasure doing business with y'all.
Then, in the beginning of 2020, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood received 10 Oscar nominations. And though yes, the main victory at the Academy Awards went to Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, Quentin's film won a statuette for Best Production Design and Decorations.
This is the first Oscar and nomination for Barbara Ling, the second Oscar and 8th nomination for Nancy Haig.
That evening, Brad Pitt also celebrated as he received the first Oscar of his career.
I think it's time we give a little love to our stunt coordinators and our stunt crews.
It's interesting that Pitt celebrated the victory in the Best Supporting Actor category, despite the fact that he spent no less time on screen than DiCaprio.
Talking about? You're my stunt double. Come on now. Shit.
And while the main prize seemed to be taken out from Quentin's nose, his sadness didn't last long. Certainly not longer than 2 weeks. On the 22nd of February, the director received a much more important prize. In Tel Aviv, Daniela bore him a son. The boy was called Leo. In honor of Daniela's grandfather, not the actor who played Rick Dalton. Fatherhood is a new era in the life of the director and will definitely affect his future art. We shouldn't look for new projects from Tarantino anytime soon. The potential remake of Star Trek seems to have been canceled, and the only real option seems to be the miniseries of Bounty Law.
I can tell you chapter and verse about his show Bounty Law. I know everything there is to know about it. I even wrote 5 episodes of Bounty Law.
Brought to you by Red Apple Cigarettes. Take a bite and feel all right. Take a bite of a Red Apple.
The director continues to insist that his 10th film will be his final one.
And I think that 10th movie would be smaller and a little bit more epilogue.
So all we can do now is continue to enjoy his fresh articles on the New Beverly website and hope for a director's cut of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But is that so bad? In Tarantino's case, the waiting was always worth it. Plus, now we have the opportunity to rewatch his films another 100 times.
I got the cock-doodle devil in my left hand. I got the balls of the Lord in my right hand. In my teeth I got the clip of the mother of man. I eat the soul with a spoon in a star the land. I've been a wild, all down with dirt, a brain awash. In my soul, a hearse up in gas, with the new air up in gas, with the new air.
So bring home a 6-pack of Southern hospitality. Bring home a 6-pack of old Chattanooga beer.
In a fist fight, and there ain't nothing that I done has felt so right. I've been slow-mo through romance. I flipped my hat and then I told my pants.
Take a bite and feel all right.
All right, this cigarette tastes like fucking shit. And by the way, who chose this photo, all right? I have a double chin, all right? Nobody notices that crap.
Hey, do you like our work? Let us know with your like and comment. push that subscribe button and share with your friends. If you want to support the project financially, become our sponsor on Patreon or YouTube sponsorship. Thank you.